Happy Saturday, everybody. This is the Girl What podcast, and this is Lomaine.
And this is the exceptional Esther Jade.
And today's topic, Girl What? We are the revolution.
We are. So, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to go into What's the Tea, Sis? With two returning guests. We are also, this section is called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. Okay, with a panel. And we have here today with us Angela Loughridge and Reverend Terry Menefee Gau. Sorry. All right, so Angela is the president of Response.Ability, an anthropologist and a true Richmond native. With a background in both computer science and social science, Angela spent years digging into the real challenges that people of color and women face in STEM fields. So after traveling the world, she made her way back home to RVA, and now she's using her experience to break down barriers in science and tech and help workplaces become more inclusive. And we also have Reverend Terry Menefee Gau. The Reverend is obviously a theologian, an actor, and an award-winning writer who specializes in narrative and film theology, local arts and culture, and screenwriting. She brings years of experience deconstructing cultural mythology and the stories we tell ourselves. Terry's a native Richmonder who has lived in RVA most of her life. We'll dive into the work she's done, bringing stories to life throughout history. That was last time. Yeah. The historical characters in her writing. So, now to the meat of it. What is a revolution? Okay, a revolution is a fundamental and often rapid change in power, structure, or the ways of thinking within a society, organization, or even an individual. Traditionally, we think of revolutions as political or social movements, people rising up to overthrow governments, systems, or institutions. But revolution can also be personal or cultural. So we're going to talk about the three types of revolution. The first one being a political social revolution. Definition: a collective movement that seeks to overturn existing power structures, governments, or social systems. Often involves protests, advocacy, or organized resistance. So revolutions happen when people feel oppressed or marginalized. They aim to redistribute power, demand rights, and end systemic injustice. It can be violent or nonviolent, but the goal is structural change, always. And it often leads long-term societal impacts. A few examples. All right? I know that y'all need these, right? The first one being the Haitian Revolution from 1791 to 1804. Enslaved people of African descent overthrew European colonial rule and slavery, okay? And then we have the Civil Rights Movement right here in the USA in the 1950s to 1960s. Black Americans fought systemic racism, we still do, and segregation through protests, legal challenges, and grassroots organizing. And the Arab Spring, which happened in 2010 to 2012, mass uprisings across the Middle East demanding political reform and democracy. So now I am going to turn to our panel with a question. What's your outlook on revolutions?
That's an excellent question.
It is.
Okay, that we have to think about, of course. And Terry, would you like to go first, or you have something on your mind?
I'll tell you what my outlook on revolution is. I think I had my first personal revolution when I was about 9, and I was watching, the dinosaurs, where that little dinosaur would say, knock the mama, knock the father on the head with the pan.
Yes.
And I just had this revelation about, like, why do we all have to die? I mean, like, why is that one decision made off of these two stinking people eating an apple or whatever fruit from this tree of knowledge? Now we all have to suffer. Why can't we go through the whole test? And like, I really kind of, also not just the first revolution, but my own first, what do they call it when you have ego burst? Ego burst. And so I've kind of been revolutionized since I was young. So what it means to me is freedom and freedom of choice and like living outside the lines, right, of what has been put before me.
Gotcha. So just to make sure I'm understanding it right, so revolution is where an oppression is detected
Mhm.
and a change is recommended,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then energy and action follows.
Right.
Okay, all right, just for my logical mind, I wanted to
So
make sure. And the question is it necessary?
You know, what's your outlook
What's
on
my outlook?
revolution?
Well, maybe that's how I answered the question. I think it's
Yes.
necessary.
Exactly. Exactly.
And let me tell you why I think it's necessary. Well, first and foremost, I mean, even with a science background, my first science I love is natural science. Okay, and natural science, everyday nature teaches us a lot of these things. And you think about it, everything in nature has some sort of revolution
Right.
in its evolution and in its growth. You know, so I think we take a lot of clues from that, or should take a lot of clues
From nature?
From nature.
Yep.
You know,
totally
because
agree.
what if we just live the same stagnant life with the same stagnant structures forever without testing a boundary? Then we never learn a new dimension of ourselves. You know, or a people group never learns a new level of freedom.
Right.
Or you run out of a certain food, you know, and you starve to death because you never knew to explore a different territory. But anyway, so yes, I believe that revolutions are necessary.
Terry, what's your outlook on revolution?
I think they're inevitable. I mean, I think that we go through patterns and changes, and I think that we get disenchanted. I think technology gets greater. I think when people are set aside, because ultimately there is an imbalance that we end up moving towards. There's an imbalance of power, there's an imbalance of wealth, there's an imbalance. And I think that the imbalance obviously creates pain points and issues that cause death, destruction, and those things are what lead to, if people are complacent, if they are fine and everything's great, then there's not going to be a revolution. You guys saw me scrolling over here, and the reason I was scrolling is I was trying to look at this book that I had started reading a long time ago and haven't gotten around to finishing. It's called The Great Leveler by Walter, how do you say this last name? Well, I can't see it now. It is Walter Scheidel. Anyway, the story is, he goes through different eras and talks about when actual change actually takes place. And change takes place when one of, three things happen. Major war. So they've got lots of destruction. And the wealthy are then left without the people who fought the war for them. So now this levels things out a little bit, this evens things out some. Great pestilence, great plagues. So if you think about the great plagues that were happening with the bubonic plague back in Europe and other things, and then great mass financial loss. So you start seeing, you can have the revolution all you want, but unless something actually changes in one of these things, you're not going to see the systemic change that needs to take place.
Well, I think something like that might be coming.
Well, I think we're in the middle of, wars, lots of them.
Yeah.
We've just recently had a plague.
Pandemic.
Yeah, that leveled a lot of things, or at least it exposed a lot of the inequities that we've got going on. And we've got a financial crisis that is just about to happen. It's already happening to a lot of people now, and I think we're just on the precipice of something very difficult coming our way.
Definitely.
So with all three of them happening, I think revolution is upon us.
Yeah. Well, there's also the cultural revolution, which is a movement that seeks to change societal values, beliefs, norms, or artistic expressions rather than political. So focused on shifting attitudes and behaviors instead of government structures. Often redefines identity, expression, social norms, and can be driven by art, music, literature, or social movements. So a few examples of 1960s counterculture, this happened in the US and the UK, challenged mainstream values through music, fashion, and anti-war activism. Feminist movement, changing perceptions of gender roles, workplace equality, and reproductive rights. Hip-hop movement, from Bronx streets to global culture, influencing fashion, politics, and youth identity. So do you think social media has accelerated modern culture revolutions, or has it made them more performative? I'm gonna throw that one at Lo.
I think it's a little bit of both. And I say that just because, you know, like, of course, with social media, so many people think that, oh, if it's posted there, then it has to be true, it has to be accurate, when of course we know that's not the case at all. And just again, that's why we always question or try to challenge our listeners to do their own research. Because, you know, if something is, oh, if it's on Facebook, it has to be real. No, far from the truth. You know, we can't tell you how many people have died because of something that has been put on Facebook, right? And then it's like people see that's the first thing, so that's what they go with. No, that's not the truth at all. But I also feel like it's made people more performative, because it's like, you know, at the same time, you're behind the keypad or you're behind a phone, so you're not showing yourself all the time. And so, you know, people can put on this great facade for whatever they want or whatever they believe in, but then it's like, that's all it is. So it's like, okay, say for instance, like, this isn't me, but like, you know, I could be this person who, I'll say, like, you know, the Twitter gangsters or whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh,
Twitter bugs.
right, they have a bunch that they want to say when it comes to, you know, when it comes to whatever issue is going on at the time. But then it's like, you know, if somebody who knows them personally confronts them about it, they'd be like, oh, no, I'm just, you know, oh, that was just for the clout. Do they still say that?
Yes.
Do they still say clout? Okay.
But isn't that a bully, though? I mean, in a way.
Or peer pressure?
Or
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I wouldn't say so, because it's like I could say something to start a debate. So then, you know, a lot of times nowadays with social media, people can get paid for the amount of people that are coming to their page, or you know what I'm saying? So it's like you want these people to come and you want them to engage. So on the other end, you can be whomever. A real life example, when I was in college, I did my internship with a radio station, and it was a show called Bob and the Showgram. So Bob on air is this bald-headed, chubby white man, and the interns were like black, gay, just everything that, you know, one typical person wouldn't necessarily stand for. But behind the scenes, total opposite. But because of this character he played, that show was number one. Like, to the point where people listened, people knew my voice from the radio when I would go into restaurants and things like that. So it's like, they, you know, of course people are always like, oh, like, how do you stand him? I'm like, y'all, like, it's all for show. So, you know, things like that, it's helping with your ratings. It's helping keep whatever you are interested in up. So that's why, you know, I say it can be both.
Okay, so do you think social media has accelerated modern cultural revolutions, or has it made it more performative?
I think that liking and sharing something is not participating in the revolution.
Right. I agree.
I think that
That's
it
performative.
makes you feel, well, it also makes you feel like you're doing something. So it like hits that dopamine in your brain saying, oh yes, of course, and so I've shared this thing and I put up with whatever troll that was on my Facebook page, but that's not going to make change happen.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to give up something, that's the thing. Well, we're gonna put a pin in this, and because I want to hear more about what you guys have, well, Angela, on your answer on that question, but more on after the ads.
Stay tuned. Hey y'all, welcome back to Girl What Podcast. This is Lo Main, and we're just going to continue our conversation before the break regarding Love Baby and other Grownfolx business. You know, just talking, and we didn't get Miss Angela's, you know, answer to the question that was asked by Esther, which was pretty much just, you know, do you think social media has accelerated modern culture revolutions, or has it made it more performative?
Yeah, and it's interesting that I'm still thinking on that, so hopefully this makes sense as I give my perspective. The biggest thing with social media because I look at it from the front side and the back side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the front side is, of course, is supposed to connect us. It's supposed to give us information. It's supposed to make us aware of what's culturally going on, X, Y, Z. At the same time, because of my background, I also know who's behind those algorithms,
Yep.
you know, and their motives are not pure,
Yeah.
you know. And of course, the first thing my mind goes to is the January 6th insurrection, you know, and what we found out about that was how social media was used to connect these people. In that way, it did cause a revolution.
Yeah.
And in our lifetimes, a very shocking one. In fact, I remember at the time when I was married and my ex-husband was actually looking at the insurrection going on January 6th. And I walked in the room, I'm like, what movie are you looking at? And he was like, no, this is real life. This is happening at the Capitol. And I was like, my mind did not want to believe that. But, you know, as we saw that awful day progress, I'm like, of course, I'm thinking, you know, because that was one of the parts of my studies, understanding social movements. You know, what would motivate so many people to gather together to, like you said, sacrifice their time, energy, and you know, they sacrificed money to get to a spot to, you know, participate in this quote unquote cause and to really violate some laws.
Right.
And it was, of course, you know, all the planning was concocted and put together because it was able to make it through the social media algorithm. And, you know, I don't know if it was...
the algorithm is controlled.
Yeah, it's definitely
So,
controlled.
It's not a luck of the draw.
No, you know, and it was just like, well, how could they let this happen type of thing? You know, but then I think about, okay, so we're also in this country because, in this country we're supposed to have certain freedoms, right? We're supposed to be able to communicate the way that we want, but it's where it depends on the person. That's what it always boils down to. So is it performative or if it's the other thing? I think it always boils down to who that person is that's ingesting that information, what actions they take from there.
I want to go back to, you said let that happen. And I'm thinking that they made that happen.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm thinking that they purposely told a story and that they weren't just willing to give up the money. Some of these people were willing to give up their lives for
They
this.
did.
So yeah, one of them absolutely
Yeah.
did. And I find that to be not startling anymore, but I find it to be just very discouraging.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can get off the highway and go on a rabbit trail with this one, but I definitely want to respect the
Yeah, they're good.
the time.
And we have another one, A Personal Revolution, but look for that on our YouTube. We're going to hop on over to our Love, Baby, and Other Grown Folks business segment.
Yes.
Miss Lowe, I think this one's called I've Got the Power.
Yes.
I've got the power. Hey.
So yes, I just want to take a moment to hear you ladies out. Just pretty much like, you know, again with I Got the Power, and with this, you know, talking about revolution. How do you all feel that you have gained power, if you feel like you have gained any, when it comes to, you know, being a revolutionary, and what does that look like for you?
Ugh. Ugh. I feel like I had power at one point. And I feel like I hit the age of 50 and I became completely invisible. And so I spent a long time. I'm over 50. I'm well over 50. I'm over 60 now. And I mourned that for a while. But now I feel like I've got a certain amount of power being invisible. And I'm trying to reframe it in a way that I can say, and I think power is in my words. I'm a storyteller, that's what I do.
Right.
And I just want to preface that, I want to say did you know that menopause is nature's way of keeping women around?
Yes, I saw that. You and I both saw that same, I love that.
So just that alone, you should feel like, I have always felt like since a young age with older women, reverence, particularly my grandmother, who I told you was an evangelical minister, and I see inherent value in all women, especially older women, because the wisdom and especially in the South, I'm sure you know this. There's a lot of idiisms that they say, and like a lot of wisdom in those kind of things. And I feel like you should lean into that, right? Because there is always going to be someone. You never know what girl is looking at you. I mean, you're a storyteller, you're an actor, you're a theologian, like you're all of these things. So that's your revolution.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's taken over a decade for me to kind of own it and kind of say, you know what, I'm not going to get any better looking than I am right now. And I'm not going to get, but there's certain power in that though, right?
Yeah.
There's power that I didn't realize there was there.
Right.
Until it wasn't there anymore. And so I'm like, okay, where am I going to find this other power? And I looked inside and found it in words, and I found it in my stories, and I found it in other people's stories. So I'm going to say that.
Pastor
Angela.
Absolutely, no, I definitely agree with that. Your lived experiences, your testimony, no one can take that power away from you. And then the essence of wisdom. And it's funny you mentioned that about your grandmother. I remember my great-grandmother, and it's too funny. I forgot the home situation, but it was where a family member was out really late. And I remember my mother asking her grandmother, which is my great-grandmother, saying, you know, where do you think so-and-so is? You know, are you worried or whatever. And my great-grandmother responded, well, one thing I do know, the only thing open after 10 p.m. are hospitals and legs.
I've updated that to say 7-Eleven and legs. But
Listen,
but that's
no lies detected.
right. None at all.
I did not forget that. I mean, it's, you know, she's, you know, gone from this earth, but that stuck with me. Anyway, and she's right. And so, what was the original question again? Let me make sure I'm back on track.
Just asking about, like, the power that you have.
Yes.
And
Well, okay. So, and I'm going to try to sum this up because, so I'm also a classroom teacher, and that's fun some days and some days not so fun.
Right.
So, but anyway, it was where I remember my students did not like a decision that our principal made. And that was to have like closed lunches, where you can only go to your lunch block, you can't go to another teacher's classroom, you can't, hang out on the yard. I shouldn't say the yard, oh my God. But on campus somewhere, and you had to go strictly to the cafeteria, eat your lunch, go right back to your classroom. And so the students were like, we're gonna protest. We're gonna do a silent protest. We're gonna leave at a certain time in the morning, walk around the school 3 times, and then go back to class or whatever, just to make our statement. And so my students were just wonderful that year. They respected me. They were like, Miss Loughridge, just want to let you know we're going to do this protest. I was like, yeah, I heard about that. And they were like, well, we're going to walk out of your class. We just want to make sure, is that okay? And I was like, all of your assignments are excused. Don't worry about it. Express yourself. I'm all about that. And then one of the students so kindly invited me to go with them. Like, Miss Loughridge, would you like to join us with this protest? And I said, no, Miss Loughridge has a mortgage. Okay. And so he was like, these are facts. And so anyway, they did their thing, and I really appreciated that because it was where that student reminded me of when I never really wanted to be on the front line. This is mainly the most front line, I guess, I will do, and because, like I said, the other episode, I've always been a nerd, so in discovering my power, I discovered that my power is actually through research, and you said stories, which definitely understand, and I learn data and facts from those stories where we can actually put together, maybe a game plan, maybe a solution, what can we glean from this wisdom, what can we glean from this lived experience, and so, with that, it was one of my advisors who let me know as I was finishing up this degree. She was like, you know what, Angela, you are, with this work you've done, you can be considered a scholar activist. So I have held on to that term, and I continue to do so. And I just want to let anyone who's listening to know that that's also another way where, if you're like me and scared of bodily harm, and you can actually use your stories, you can use your research, you can really use anything to challenge the paradigms that are out there. And so, and that is a power.
Yes.
Expression very much is a power. And I know artists are doing it through their artwork, and so I'm a big supporter of the arts. Even though you don't want to see me draw anything, you don't want to see me or hear me sing anything. But it's where messages can still be relayed through our individuality.
Yeah, very true. And then one thing, just also quickly, I don't look at the news anymore. So one thing I had seen, though, you brought it up when you were talking about your students protesting, just like down, like, in North Carolina, how they have been, like, protecting their communities from, like, the ICE raids. And so there was one particular, I think it was a high school, or, like, different high schools in Charlotte, and then you just showed, like, hundreds of kids, like, walking out just, like, in protest. But that's one thing, it's, like, also good to see, because it's like, okay, at one point we were kind of like, oh God, we're doomed because these kids don't know what they're doing. But then just for stuff like that, to see that, they're doing these peaceful protests and they're standing for what they believe in, it kind of is like, okay, well, maybe we now do have a chance. But it's also, it's like, of course, it makes me also think, like, until it's something that hits home, you really don't know why you would be protesting or why you would need to say something about it. But of course now, because, these areas, like, we have, Hispanics and people documented and undocumented all around. So for these agents to even try to, come into schools and come into churches and just stuff like that, it's really hitting home for everyone. So it's like, you see a lot more people on the ground putting that work in as well to let them know, like, we're not scared of you.
It's forcing people to be community.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, again, this is something I realized when I was young. And I noticed that, for instance, I liked to climb trees when I was a kid. And that's not a very ladylike thing in the South. And my grandmother would come after me, and I'm like, why? The boys get to do it. And I just had this revelation that if boys can do it, I can do it. And that has been my mantra my whole life. And that my power for that I've noticed that I had is being an empath and being able to connect with people and actually getting people, at times, it might not seem that way, to kind of see the other side of things, and just using my voice as someone. I know what I risk when I raise my voice or I step into a situation that's not my own, but I said that if I ever see someone in a dire situation, that I was going to step up and stand in, because I know what it feels like to be unprotected. And, I don't think it's fair that someone has to deal with something like that, but understanding my power and how to wield that, I've luckily come out unscathed, so.
Yes, indeed. So I was going to say, kind of just again, like you said, it's forced community. It's unfortunate that it is forced, but at the same time, I would say, it's necessary. And then it's like, it allows you to see people for who they are, not necessarily by, like, what they look like.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times
we're
we
more
can
alike
see
than
people,
we're different.
yeah, but you can see somebody on the street and be like, like, they don't look like such and such, and then it'd be the total opposite. But we will be back in just a moment. Y'all stick around.
Yeah, see you later.
So in this segment, y'all, I'm just going to be asking you all your thoughts on being considered a modern day revolutionary and what that looks like to you. So the first question that I have is, do you consider yourself a modern day revolutionary? Why or why not?
Yes. This is Esther J. Yes. Hell yes. To 10,000th degree. Why? Because, first of all, I'm going to be the change. Okay? Second of all, when you're being a leader of change, that inspires other people. And I want to be an inspiration for people to do what's right, even when it's not easy. Because even if you think you might lose something, you gain something twofold. Don't forget that.
Yeah. That's me doing the what's the tea. Y'all can get it that fast.
Wow.
I know, strong statement.
That is, and I'm letting it marinate right now. And yes, I consider myself a modern day revolutionary. And the main reason why I say that, and I knew this years ago, and several instances confirm this, is mainly because I tend to do things, like you were saying, not what people expect. You know, when we're born into this system as a woman in the United States, there are certain expectations that are already put on us.
Right.
Yep.
Even now, today, which I find boggling. You know, like, haven't we done enough?
For real.
They still want us to do more.
More than enough.
Enough, you know, and it gets even more expectation restricted for women of color, you know, because you know, obviously Black women are expected to be a certain way. Asian women are expected to be a certain way. Hispanic, Latina women are expected to be a certain way. And the list goes on and on. Even our Native women have expectations for them, you know, silently peaceful and XYZ. So already doing things outside of a normal expectation is just being a revolutionary, I believe, and I feel. And then when you start advocating for yourself, saying, you know what, you will not speak to me that way. You know, you will not touch me in that way. You know, I remember being on an IT team when I was a software tester. And yeah, it was male dominated. And I found out really quick sexual harassment really sometimes has nothing to do with sex.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
it has to do with power. And that's what I was subjected to. And that, you know, you know, so why would someone want to sexually harass someone who's, you know, they're not sexually attracted to, is because they are trying to restrain their power, trying to yield it or wield it, or contain it, I should say, in some way, shape, or form, because obviously I'm breaking through your expectation of how you perceive that I should be. So just doing those things is just being revolutionary.
What about you, Terry?
Well, I can't say no. I can't say no.
Especially on the panel.
I struggle a little bit on being a revolutionary, because and I say that because every time I do it, it scares me to death. And so I have to go forward and say, look, I've got to tell the truth.
Yeah.
I've got to tell the story that nobody else is telling here. And so when I'm asked to preach, I'm reading a story in a Bible that has been convoluted over many, many, many years, centuries, millennia, and trying to discern and distill something that to bring forward today. And that really is as revolutionary as it gets, right? Is to speak love and justice and anger and demands. There are actual demands that say you're supposed to be kind and just and good to people. This is what you're supposed to do. And to stand up and say that, particularly in the time that we're in, is revolutionary. But if you don't stand up and say it, then how are anybody else going to find those words sometimes? I think people know the words. I think that they're written on our souls. I do. I think sometimes you just need somebody else to say it to. And to be the person to stand up in a pulpit and say that can feel very scary. And the last time I did it this past summer was very scary because it was on you'd think this was a softball toss to do the Good Samaritan. It's not. It's a really hard scripture, and it's a real indictment of who we are. So to say those things, and I'm always just incredibly humbled by doing that, to have the opportunity and to have the ability and to have the privilege to be able to stand up and say things like that. It's the same with writing a script. It's the same with writing a story. There are lots of stories out there that we've heard a bazillion times. But if you can just switch it just a little bit, you can actually subvert the story.
Mm-hmm.
And you can expand our understanding of what a hero looks like.
Yes.
Expand our understanding of what a revolution can be. Expand our understanding of who we are and our mythology. And what the mythology has left behind, and what we can still hold on to and subvert the things that don't work so that we can include people. And I don't mean like everybody can be a part of this party, because there's some people who become part of the party that ruin the party, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some people get left behind.
Yeah, well, and it's like, it's the, isn't that the paradox, the paradox of intolerance? It's you can't tolerate the intolerance. And so, so that's my little corner, my little artist's corner of revolution, as a revolutionary, is to tell the story. If it's not my story, then why? And how can I find the person to help me tell the story? If it's somebody else's story, how can I expand the story so it subverts our understanding of what may or may not be true, a foundation that may be crumbling? And how can I be that vessel to share it? How can I find words? So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
And then, as I say, I'm going to ask one more question. How do you hope people will describe this era of change that you're a part of?
I hope people live to describe it.
That part.
No,
Well, I do know the Earth will still be here, but we're not.
Right. Are we going to be living under sea or on Mars? I mean,
You know, the sea hasn't been completely explored yet. So.
Yeah, I marvel at that question, because I've noticed that these periods of history, they tend to get named after they've happened.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Because when you're in the middle of a storm, sometimes you don't know you're in a storm.
Yeah,
You
very
know.
true.
And and that's when you're in the eye of the storm. You know, you're in the worst or thickest part of it. And so it's really just looking backward. That hindsight, they say, is 20/20. This is where you could be like, okay, that was the XYZ.
Yeah.
I
You
know what I would call it though.
What would you
What?
call it?
I would call it the awakening. Because
Ah.
people are starting to connect the dots. We're more alike than we're different.
Mhm.
And the things that we have been conditioned to accept and not accept, and understanding that we've been hoodwinked. And that goes along with like the social revolution, where, like, for instance, we were progressing, right? You know, we have the same-sex marriages, we have, obviously equity and equality for women, and it was trending in the right way. And now you see they're trying to move it all the way back to cause harm to the most vulnerable people in our community, which would be women and children and femme-presenting people. So I'd like to call it the awakening.
And I like that. Can I add on to
Yeah,
that?
go
The
ahead.
reconnection.
Yes, reconnection to the earth. I love
Yeah,
that.
reconnection with, you were saying earlier, community.
Yes.
You know, realizing that we do have more similar than we
Yes.
have different
Yes.
amongst us. And that's definitely reconnecting to the earth and reconnecting with ourselves. We were talking about technology earlier. You know, sometimes technology, is convenient, but sometimes it takes us out of our our natural selves and puts us into an artificial self. You know, in actuality, our bodies are wired with so many senses, you know, but we have desensitized ourselves against our own bodies, you know, so a lot of people immediately run to a pill or immediately run to a, outside thing, you know,
External gratification.
yeah, that's you know, like naturally made. It's a chemical substitute for something that in actuality it's going to take longer for you to actually regulate your system, but it can be done in a more natural way. But we just like, no, I just want to get the quick and easy. But in actuality, we have, and I believe, and I also believe in, we have a creator, a God, who made everything that we need right here on earth. And it's our journey, and it's our mission to find out exactly what that is. You know, but yeah, so reconnecting with community, reconnecting with ourselves, and reconnecting with parent Earth.
Well, from your mouth to God's ear, we want. I mean, we want this to be. I would love to have, because we're not there yet, right?
Not at all.
Well, I think that we were talking about this earlier about apocalypses, and I heard something very interesting that indigenous people and black people have experienced their apocalypses many times over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Not in the sense of the world coming to an end, but like our existence, our culture, our foods, our way of life. Whereas now, you know, white people are coming close to that, and it's just the resistance to their apocalypse. And like, you have to go through that bust so you can, in my opinion, to elevate yourself into more humanity. And I think that's what's happening, right? Yeah. There's this consistent loss of humanity, or trying to stomp humanity out of people. There's this active resistance to it, and now it's coming to a head. And I think, you know, the awakening is so prophetic, I guess, in a way. And yes, you can say that, coin that.
Awakening, trademarked. I think you're right, though. I mean, 2020 was an awakening for me as a white woman. And people of color who were my friends were like, Terry, this is just every day for us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how did I not know that? And they're like, because you have a certain amount of privilege that you don't know that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Pretty heavy thing, right? And I understand that not every white person is going to understand that, right?
Or accept it.
Yes. Yes.
it's a heavy thing, but it's
Yeah.
not something that I can't handle.
Right.
And it's something that other people have been handling for
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
so I should be able to manage this.
But that's part of the humanity, right?
Yeah.
And people constantly blocking out the humanity.
Yeah.
You know? So those are really thought-provoking questions, Lo.
Indeed.
I really love that.
Well, yes, we are so grateful that you all
Yes.
were able to join us today. Definitely the entire episode was very thought-provoking, you know. Hopefully it'll get our listeners to, you know, kind of do more research for themselves, as we always say, just because, you know, hey, maybe you never considered yourself a revolutionary, but here you are like, oh no, like I am, like, oh yeah, I definitely agree with everything they're saying. So, you know, hey, y'all know how to hit us up. Let us know if this, you know, this conversation was thought-provoking. Did it kind of make you have an aha moment? Did it have you kind of shying away like, nah, that's not my cup of tea? So, you know, just let us know. DM us, comment on our YouTube channel, just let us know.
Yeah, and now it's time for That's It. So, what did we learn today? What did we learn? We are the revolution, okay? We are the revolution. So we started off with some, for the what's the tea, the revolution will not be televised. And we asked some very thought-provoking questions such as, do you think social media has accelerated modern culture revolutions, or has it made it more performative? What do you think, listeners? And then also we moved into talking a little bit more about I've got the power and where we got a power in our lives, right? And then we ended with don't just talk about it, be with the panelists. And we just talked about their thoughts on being a modern day revolutionary. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here with us today. It's
Thanks
always
for
an
having
honor
us.
to have you on here to give us your wisdom and your insight and your experiences.
And we'll see y'all again, because y'all know y'all.
Yeah, your family.
We're gonna tell y'all over and over, like, we're gonna keep saying, hey, we have something that we want y'all to come in on. So it's definitely always wonderful conversation. So just as back in with Esther said, thank you all so much. We much appreciate the conversation, and just, you know, it also gets our brains turning as well. So it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, happy Saturday. Be the revolution.
I got the power.